Okay,
Okay.
I think
Are you
we
wearing a
waited
hat
enough.
inside? Is it that cold?
I was
Oh my
outside
God,
and
sorry.
no, yeah. I mean, my I have the heater on and the room is heating up, but my hair is also messy right now, so I just left the hat on. But yeah, let's get started. RJ, Jeannie, good morning or good afternoon for you, Jeannie. And to everyone else, welcome to this week's community call. We're really lucky to be joined by RJ this week, answer some questions. Yeah, there have been a lot of, I think, interesting questions submitted on the Google form that we have just perpetually running if you do have questions. So please continue to submit questions there, and you can also use the chat, of course. So, RJ, should we jump in?
Um,
Or
Jeannie, you want to say something?
um, no, no. I was gonna say the same thing.
Okay, yeah. Thank you everyone for being here. Um, I don't know, this is like how many community calls we have already? We have done a few.
oh,
Uh,
probably like a dozen at least. Uh, Most of the
okay,
recordings are on YouTube, but there's a few that we didn't record for technical issues. So
great. Yeah, for if anyone is new here, the idea is to have a place every week where you can ask questions about Aligned. Um, it can be about anything regarding the project, not only technical questions or what we're doing, but also if you're curious about anything specific that is happening around the line. And yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm RJ. I'm one of the founders. Usually, we also try to invite Diego, that is one of the other co-founders, and Mauro, so we can be more in touch with people who are interested in knowing more about the line. And yes, Boris and Jeannie are the people who make the effort to have these community calls and all of the ecosystem activities, hackathons. Many of the people here usually are from the hackathon, Jeannie and Boris from that part. And yeah, I think we should start. We have a lot of questions.
yeah. And the questions today, it's a mix of it's a lot of sort of technical things related to the project, and I guess it aligns context in or place in the broader context of Ethereum and cryptography and decentralized tech. So, I mean, we can start with kind of an easy one, which was if we have a bug bounty program, which is of interest to some people for
Yeah.
sure.
So we right now we're finishing an audit competition with Cantina, and once we have finished that part, we will have an ongoing back mounting competition. We will share more of the details once everything is settled. But yes, the idea is to have something. So if anyone in the future finds something, they can have a way to report it, and we have a formal process for all of that. It's not live yet because this competition is ending, and didn't make sense to have a back bounty while an audit competition was going on, but we will have it in the near future.
Yeah, and this is part of our ongoing commitment to security. Obviously, this is very, very important in Web3. Have to make sure digital assets are safe. What I'm going to drop in the chat is a blog post that goes over all of the security audits that led up to our current mainnet beta proof verification layer, which is now in the chat if anybody wants to learn more.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Gene, do you want to take the next one?
Yeah, sure. Um, Apart from enhancing Ethereum's zero knowledge verification capabilities, does Align have any other long-term goals?
Yeah. So, okay, this is a good question. So, for those who don't know, Align was born. I mean, the idea of Align was born only to build an infrastructure that can help applications and developers get access to a cheaper and faster verification directly on Ethereum. Because verifying those proofs, usually, if you do it with certain frequency, you can spend millions of dollars depending on the type of application. And you have different ways to amortize that cost and reduce your operational cost if you're a CK rollup or a bridge, for example. But what we realized is by building this infrastructure in order to help the CK ecosystem on Ethereum, is that there are many things that we need to do and where we can help not only to reduce costs, but also to offer a better developer experience and allow other people to start building with CK. So Align today is not only an infrastructure for zero knowledge proofs, but it will be an ecosystem of products that will help people access. We will try to allow people to access the the security of Ethereum, minimizing costs. So the idea is to we're in the business of allowing people to use Ethereum without constraints, and that will mean that we will create a certain products on top of Aligned, and we'll build SDKs and tooling that developers don't have today. For example, um, we will build a very simple stack where you can run your own rollup on top of Aligned. We're working on a bridge that we have a design for over a year that we're really excited that we can start exploring because we have something like Align that allows this to make this feasible. So um, it's going to be more than one infrastructure. It's going to be an ecosystem of products with the focus of accelerating the roadmap and the adoption of Ethereum, mainly focusing on developer tooling.
And
Maybe some puzzle games. I'm like, I
yeah.
wanna make puzzle games.
Honestly, I mean, anything that's something I wanted to add to what you said, RJ, just to maybe help people understand if it wasn't completely clear. But this is how I like to think of it. It's that by making zero knowledge proof verification very cost effective and easy to use, this creates a lot more ways that people can use Ethereum to build different products and tools. And these products can be games, right? Like that is a very valid product, something that is fun for people, entertaining, um, teaches them something, right? That's something useful. And if we can help all these different things use Ethereum, then I think we've done a good job.
Yeah, the way to think about it is the following. There's a lot of discussions around Ethereum today, right? And not only technical, but also cultural and um, in terms of the long-term roadmap of Ethereum. And the way Ethereum decided to start scaling is using rollups, and in particular now, more than ever, using CK rollups, right? So um, these applications scale because you can prove that you did certain stuff outside of Ethereum, and with one simple proof, you can be sure everything was done correctly, right? The new state is actually true. The issue is the verification of those proofs doesn't scale because the computer where you verify those things, that is Ethereum, has been stagnating. It was not designed with that purpose, and it has a certain amount of proof that it can actually verify. So what we realize is, okay, we need to build something next to Ethereum or on top of Ethereum that can actually help the verification of proof scale. And while you do that is you lower the cost and you allow more people to start being able to experiment more on top of Ethereum because you make things so cheap that the cost of trying to make a new application goes way lower. You don't need to raise maybe millions of dollars to start operating one of these applications or infrastructures. And at the same time, we realize, okay, now that we have this new brand infrastructure that is super cheap and fast, what can we start showing to the market that you can start building? And what else is missing for more people to start experimenting? So we started very focused doing one thing in particular for one infrastructure. And now we're starting to see, hey, there are more things in the ecosystem where we can add more value around Aligned.
Yeah, exactly. And we mentioned, well, RJ mentioned a few of those earlier in the call, but we also have some recent posts talking about our roadmap. I think it's part of the tokenomics blog post that talks about we don't go into too much detail yet, but it mentions aggregation layer, the roll up stack, and the bridges. So I'm excited to share more about that when we can personally. But yeah, stay tuned. And I think this actually leads us nicely into the next question, which is basically we could sum it up as how do we define success? Like what will be the specific question was what will be the tangible indicators of Alliance contributions to Ethereum and its transformation into the global open coordination network. But really it's like how do we measure success? Like how will we know that we've done what we set out to do?
I have a very simple example that people believe I'm joking when I use it, but I think it's actually true, is that when we can allow a college student to launch its own rollup for a meme coin ecosystem, and they can do it for only a few thousands of dollars, I think we achieve success, because that means anyone can start playing around with the tech. And the issue I see today is that in order to start playing around, in order to build something new, you need to raise a lot of money. And that was not always the case on the internet. Like many of the big applications we have today were quickly built with an MVP, put them put them in production, and then iterate very quickly. And the problem with crypto is I believe you cannot do that if you want, uh, if you need to go into a route of actually using an app chain or a rollup. And I believe we will have achieved success if we can allow any college student to create a secret rollup as easy as you run a server. And for that, we need to do not only a lot of work in the verification side, but also in the tooling and the security, right? You don't want uh, someone without a lot of experience to launch a financial application that can get easily hacked. So I think when we do that, when it's a simple click, it works, it's secure, and it's cheap and fast, I believe that's where we can say, okay, this is what we wanted to achieve. Anyone can access Ethereum liquidity and security without having to go and raise millions of dollars, and they can iterate quickly.
Yeah, that I love that example, RJ. I'm also curious on your take about current rollup as a service providers, because it seems like some of these I haven't tried to deploy my own rollup with Caldera or Conduit or anything, but at least for optimistic rollups, it does seem like it's fairly easy nowadays to launch your own rollup. But you maybe have more commentary there. I don't know if you've tried that yourself.
Yeah, I try mostly the optimistic rollup stacks because the CK rollup stacks are still a little early, at least from, I don't know, since 3 months ago. It's still complicated to do without having, like, the rollup as a service people exist because it's not as easy as going to a terminal and simply launching your own rollup. I think we need to go into a route where you don't need a vendor in order to help you run an infrastructure or an application. And they should exist to maybe improve the experience or handle certain stuff when your application is very big. It should be like in Web 2 when you launch your server. You don't need to have, um, I don't know, a Heroku or many of the other services that put everything in a box and you don't know exactly what you're doing. So it's still early, and I believe part of the problem is we don't have that mentality of having a very simple open source stack where you simply go to your terminal, maybe you use a CLI or a makefile, and we just start running
Boom.
a rollup. And this is important because you need people to be able to experiment quickly. If I need to contact someone from sales, I'm not allowing people to experiment. I'm putting friction for people in order to experiment. And it's not only friction in terms of time, it's also of people to have access to those systems. Maybe if you are someone from, the crypto is very global. Maybe if you're someone from, I don't know, India, and you need to get in touch with one of the rollout as a service people who are in the States, maybe they will not put you in the same priority as a friend they know from college in order to start allowing you to run and play around with the tech. So I believe it's very important for an ecosystem to lower the friction and allow anyone to start testing around and playing around. That's the only way things can grow quicker. And we need to do more work on tooling, uh, more than building complicated infrastructure behind the scenes to make people use something that should be simple.
Hmm.
Launching your rollup should be super simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the analogy of rollups being like the next evolution of servers, where, if you're hosting some
Yeah.
sort of computation, you do it as a rollup, and it's secured and decentralized and, backed by economic security through Ethereum. Um, yeah. This made me think of something that has been in the, crypto Twitter discourse the last couple of days. Well, not just the last couple of days, but I saw a few things yesterday which are very relevant to what you just said. Um, and it was talking about L1 scaling versus scaling through rollups, and how they're in a lot of ways the same thing, like making the EVM provable, like snarkifying the EVM. One of the strategies being that this should first be tested at the rollup level to figure out security and everything else before upgrading, the L1 to this kind of architecture. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but what you just said, RJ, kind of made me think like, yeah, if we make it easier for people to launch ZK rollups, then we also make it easier for people to experiment with, I guess, upgrades and changes that can ultimately trickle up or down, whichever direction you want to portray it as, to the L1.
Yeah, I believe it's a little more longer conversation, right? Because when you're touching the L1 and making changes, I think that we go into a route where you need to be a little more conservative on the stuff you introduce. That doesn't mean I want the speed of change on Ethereum to go slower. I actually want Ethereum to go faster in technical terms and in terms of delivery. But what I mean is making, for example, or enshrining certain verification of a CK EVM that is kind of new, I don't think is the right approach today. But making the changes so it's easy for another EVM to be executed on LDL1, kind of what Justin Drake is proposing, I think is the right approach. I believe the experimentation should be done more for a particular ecosystem, a particular application, where you don't put at risk everything, right?
Yeah.
And then with time, you can start learning, and you can say, okay, this type of technology you can start enshrining directly on the tech. But the mentality of the way Ethereum should see who are their users or the customers, I believe it should be aligned with this idea of more people experimenting. Why? Because you need Ethereum to see people who will launch rollups as part of their customers. I mean, you have people who directly interact on Ethereum today, and they are the customers as well. But I believe the idea of having rollups as a customer should be taken more into account, because you want more blobs so more people can start using Ethereum. You also need faster block time, so interoperability is better. Actually, it's better also for rollups in general, not only for interoperability, because you can start posting blocks at a higher frequency. And for us on Align, taking into account CK is very, very new. One of the advantages we have is that by having a system that is only designed for CK and uses directly the cryptographic libraries of the different proving systems, we can easily adapt to the latest tech. Because the only thing we're doing is verifying proofs. So if a developer doesn't know exactly what type of CKVM today is the one they want to use for the future, if you're using Aligned and we actually succeed and make a very simple SDK and a very simple API where you don't need to change a lot of stuff, you can easily move from one CKVM to the other one without having to worry about, okay, which one is actually the best, and study and try to get an idea of the security of each CKVM.
Yeah.
And Align will be more experimentation level in that part compared to Ethereum.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was kind of referring to the idea that rollups can be the place where new EIPs get tested before they get implemented at the L1 level, which is why I was saying, if you can have more people launch ZK rollups easily, then there's more opportunities to test out different implementations, changes to the EVM, etc.
No, I think that part is already happening. And actually, the problem is, I have a different philosophy. I think the experimentation shouldn't be on the features you add to the EVM. It should be more on the product. And in order to have people experiment quicker and with more freedom on the product, you need a very simple thing in the technology that doesn't change that much. Because if you give people too many options, it's a problem when they want to build tech. You need to make it flexible and a very foundational part that is easy to build on top, kind of like Linux. So then people can start building the best product they can. I don't particularly think the future is having everyone with different EIPs or whatever. Um, I think it's more on, okay, I'm building this new application or product. I have a very simple foundational part that satisfies my needs, and then I can start improving other parts.
Hmm.
Because the future also, I believe, is not only with EVM. I think people will code in Rust and verify directly on Ethereum, and you will not use a normal Ethereum virtual machine.
Interesting. Okay. Jeannie, do you want to take the next one? Yeah, I like that question, which is, I think, a fun one. A little bit of lore, potentially.
Um, what were the most significant technical hurdles during the early stages of Aligned, and how did the team address them?
Okay. Have a couple. I mean, the best person for this is actually Mauro, because he has been in the trenches with the engineers every single day. But we did some great, I mean, for those who don't know, Aligned is 1 year old, the idea of Aligned. And during the first half of the year, we did 3 testnets, and we started using a Cosmos SDK for a very simple proof of concept. And then we moved directly to EigenLayer to build the ABS, because we always wanted to build it, to build an ABS on EigenLayer. So the technical challenges were mostly some parts in the EigenLayer SDK that were kind of new, that we were pushing the boundaries, and we were also building super fast. So we were um, finding constantly new stuff that needed to be fixed. Luckily, the EigenLayer team was super receptive, and they have been helping us on that part.
Shout out to
And
Eigenlayer.
yes, and I believe more than a technical challenge, it has been in the hackathon realizing that we need to improve certain parts of the product that are not directly in the infrastructure, are more on the SDK, making sure we can have an easy set of smart contracts that is more composable for other people to build on top of Align. Then there are a couple of distributed systems problems that we found that is normal when you're building a project like this, in order to get more observability of the network or realizing what is happening actually in the network. But I don't know if that makes sense to having this call. And also the best person for explaining all of those details is it's actually Mauro. I think you're muted, Boris.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was saying that it would be cool to have an engineering focused community call sometime soon to talk about some roadmap things, and I think that would be interesting for a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I mean, to give an idea of what's happening in engineering terms, we had a very, very busy engineer in the engineering team. Um, we had 3 test nets, then mainnet beta, a lot of audits, still out of research going on. So we have now the engineering team trying to rest a little bit, so we can have them for 2025 and they don't burn out. And we will come with a more detailed roadmap or a few examples of applications on top of Align once they come back. So if you're a developer and you want to learn more about how to build on top of Align, all of that, we'll have more opportunities, but it will be in the next few weeks. I need the team needs Mauro and the rest of the engineers to rest a little bit. It has been a very intense year, and I think this year is going to be super intense as well. Uh, but starting in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. I'm Jeannie, by the way. I'm skipping the next question we have on the list just to jump to the next one, the one after that, which is a little bit related to some of the things that we've talked about. And this question correctly says that we're helping address Ethereum scalability issues by making proof verification much cheaper. But they're also asking if we have ideas for how this solution can impact ecosystems beyond Ethereum, and how this can help potentially with interop between different rollups or app chains. So there's kind of 2 parts there.
Yes.
One is like beyond Ethereum, and then within the Ethereum ecosystem, do we have ideas for using Align to solve interop issues?
Yeah, I mean, for the first part, I think we covered a little bit with another question. We're helping Ethereum scale because um, the main method or the main way Ethereum wants to scale actually has a bottleneck. Because what you need is to verify a lot of proofs. The problem is the throughput or the bandwidth of proof of verification of Ethereum has certain constraints. And what we build is, to give a very bad analogy, to a normal computer, is we build a kind of like a GPU for Ethereum, um, that instead of running floating point math for example games, what we're doing is verifying proofs. So by having something that is specifically made for receiving proof, verify them, batch them, and post them on Ethereum, we can have a way bigger bandwidth of proof verification for Ethereum. So we're improving the feature that is helping Ethereum scale. That's what we're doing. Now, in terms of interoperability and how we're helping app chains and maybe other ecosystems, for interoperability, there are a couple of things. One is that by having an infrastructure like Align that is specified or was only made with the purpose of verifying proofs, we can easily integrate any other proof system that exists in the ecosystem, right? For example, Mina has Kimchi. It has a math, to make it in very simple terms, it has a math that is different from the one the EVM supports. And in order to verify a proof of Mina on Ethereum, it's almost impossible. But for Align, it's easy because the only thing that we need to do is say, hey, we want to integrate the verifier of Mina and receive the proof from every Mina block and check if they're correct. And if they're correct, people will be able to build a bridge from Mina to Ethereum because we will be able to verify every single proof from Mina. That is interoperability, because one of the beauty or one of the advantages of ZK it makes computation easily check in different places as long as you can verify proofs. So you are helping interoperability in that part. And the other thing is you can start building interoperability protocols on top of Align for rollups, and that's something that we're exploring. And we want to use something called storage proofs. So it's checking that certain data happen on a different chain, and you use ZK in order to make it faster and cheaper. So this way, you will be easily be able to move assets between chains and access a market of market makers will allow you to front you the liquidity you need.
Yeah. Yeah, it's some stuff that we've started looking into a little bit for our next hackathon highlight post. So I'll mention, if anyone hasn't seen this yet, we put the first one out highlighting the first place winner, Nishant Pikachu, here in the chat. And for each of these, we're kind of doing a bit of a sort of medium deep dive into different use cases of ZK that Aligned enables. The first one we showcased was ZK in gaming, because this is one of the topics that our hackathon projects kind of went after during the Aligned Builders Hackathon. So the next one I think will be about bridges and ZK Lite clients and stuff like that. So not one of the questions that was submitted, but something I wanted to kind of run by you, RJ, and might be interesting for people listening, is I've been thinking about interoperability with other L1s, like Berachain is launching soon. And I'm curious, like, if there was some way to use ZK to build better bridges between Berachain and Ethereum, for example. Like, I'm sure there are some solutions already, but sort of connecting separate L1s is something that seems like an interesting opportunity for ZK in terms of use cases.
Yes, it depends a lot. It depends a lot on the L1. Like in the interoperability discussion is more than just ZK. You still need other stuff than zero knowledge in order to make that happen, because in many cases you will probably need to prove the consensus of another chain. Mm-hmm. And maybe with ZK you get almost there, but you cannot prove the full consensus, and you need something else for the interoperability. But for example, something with Bitcoin, if you have a Bitcoin-like client that is written in Rust and use a ZKVM, you can actually create a very simple bridge from Bitcoin to Ethereum, because you can actually prove that something actually happened. A certain transaction was actually included in a Bitcoin chain during a period of time, right? You still need to take into account other stuff because you can have forks, but ZK actually helps that part because it gives you another tool to start building these interoperability protocols without having to bootstrap a whole completely new chain that is checking the state of one chain and posting the result on another one. But I think with ZK getting faster and cheaper, we'll get there. The problem is not only ZK, you need those chains to have good light clients and other stuff in order to make that happen.
Yep. Cool. Thank you. Jeannie, do you want to take this next one? Which we've answered in some ways already, but I think is nice to get like a very clear, succinct description of.
Okay. Sorry, yeah. Could you explain Aligned in a simple sentence? It is hard to grasp how Aligned supports Ethereum.
Okay. Align is an infrastructure. Align is an infrastructure built for developers and our applications with the purpose of helping them access the security of Ethereum in a more cheaper and faster way. That's what we do. We're in the business of allowing people to access Ethereum with less money and without the constraints of the Ethereum.
Boom. Yeah, I like those questions.
It's not easy to explain. No, in ZK, I think the problem we have is very difficult to explain things in a simple manner.
Mm-hmm.
I think we will get there at some point. And it's probably the hardest part of the job, to be honest. Explaining stuff in one sentence so that is easy to grasp for everyone.
Yep. There's this idea of, the best answer being the simplest one, which is still correct. Or another quote that I really like, I forget, some famous mathematician or philosopher, or just probably both, because back in those days, everyone was a polymath if they're still remembered today. And I forget who it was exactly, but some people probably know this quote, and it's that, I would have written a shorter letter if I had more time. And yeah, that can definitely be a challenge. So
I'll also post the article in the channel that we shared about ZK Gaming.
Yes.
And maybe also announce it. Yes.
Yeah. Another shout out to Nishant for contributing to some research into use cases of ZK in gaming. On that topic, if anyone has ideas or questions about this piece that we put out, we'd love to keep the conversation going. If you're working on games or you want to try to create verifiable games, let's chat. We think this is a cool topic. Gaming is super interesting. A lot of people like games, and I think it's a nice opportunity for people to experiment with ZK. So yeah, I think that those are sort of the main technical questions I wanted to go through, RJ. But before we wrap up, maybe it would be good to comment on CoinList and sort of like plans related to the token coming up. There was a question that I thought was maybe interesting. I don't know if we want to get into that, but it was talking about, obviously we don't have a TGE date set yet. That doesn't depend on us. People keep asking, and we joke that it's going to be in 2050. But there was a question which I think could be interesting, which is around how we're approaching ensuring that there's like sufficient liquidity during the process, like the market around the token. I don't know if there's much we can say about that, but it is something that people are curious about, I guess, like DEXs, other places that can be traded.
Yes. For those who don't know, there's a CoinList community offering ongoing that is finishing tomorrow afternoon in Europe. For those who are interested, they can go and look it up on the CoinList website. But in terms of what we're doing for liquidity and the go-to-market maybe for the token, what I can say is the following. We are going to have a very big supply of the token liquid at TGE. For those who haven't checked it out, we did a very big airdrop. More than 1 million wallets were eligible for registration, and more than 250,000 of wallets actually registered for the airdrop. So for the liquidity, yes, we are going to the route that most projects do, where they interact with certain market makers in order to facilitate liquidity across different exchanges and making sure everyone can have a good experience on the day of launch. I cannot say more on that. Then there are, I mean, I don't think it's worth getting into the details, but we're doing all of we can to have like a successful normal launch for a token. And in particular, I think what is interesting about Aligned is that we'll have a lot of the supply in the market from day one. Many people are in the airdrop, and there will probably be a lot of volume because all of these people will be claiming. I hope they remember they need to claim, and we do a good job to remind them of that. And yeah, it will be interesting.
Yes, exciting stuff coming, both technical and token related. Um, okay, well, I think this is maybe a good time to wrap things up. I wanted to say thank you again to everybody for joining, and please continue with feedback. You know, we talked about a few ideas for what we want to do with the community calls at the beginning of this conversation. We are going to try streaming this simultaneously on Twitter next week. And these are really for you guys to ask questions and get some FaceTime with the team, hear updates. But we want these to be useful for you. So, I mean, we mentioned that it would be cool to do some of these with some of our partner projects, like 3MI, for example. And if there are specific projects that you see we're partnered with and you guys are particularly interested in, please let us know in Discord and we can try to prioritize that. You know, if there's specific topics you're interested in hearing more about, we'd love to make these really useful for you, informative, and generally fun. So please don't be shy. We're here for your feedback. RJ,
Yeah,
thank you for the
please.
time.
No, that
Yeah.
no, nothing to say. That please interact in the chat, send us questions. We'll try to answer. And for those who want to spam us, try to spam us. We will ban you. And if you get super annoying asking the same question, you will get banned or trolled, depending on the day. So, but for those who actually want to learn more about the project, please ask questions. I spend at least a few minutes per day answering stuff here and in Telegram. And Boris is also always online. So yeah, we're more than open to answer any of your questions and try to receive feedback to see what else you would like to see from us.
Exactly. One last thing, actually, that I can mention is that in 15 minutes, RJ will be on the Rollups modular ecosystem stream, I believe, and I think that's going to be on Twitter. So if anybody here wants to get a sort of taste of what's been cooking within the broader modular ecosystem, please tune in. I think it'll be a good one. So with that, thank you again. And Jeannie, RJ, I will see you guys later.
Bye,
Ciao.
everyone. Thank you.